What I want to know is how does one get involved in doing rock work as a woman? Do you really, really want to know? Or do you just want the rehearsed response that I always give? What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? Like if we really, really just told the real truth of our lives. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
You're listening to Hammered.
Moving in with Regina and her new guy, Tim, was a second chance for me. But I felt more like a loser now than I did after the big fight and fiasco with Dave. Regina was the only person that really stuck by me during that time, with the exception of Chris, the money counter. But all the guys at the ice cream company pretty much teamed together and, wouldn't talk to me, and they sort of sided up with Dave. So that was a weird dynamic. But I remember during that time, my face was still black and blue and messed up. Regina took me to the movies, and it was dark, so it was kind of a good escape to go and just to kind of hide out in the movies instead of going to a bar. But her place was really nice, and she had a lot of books and art and really beautiful things, plants. It was just a very comfortable place, and she liked jazz. And I had never really listened to jazz that much, but Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan. I remember that song, Diana Washington, what a difference a day makes, 24 little hours. That song would stick in my head because I was trying to have a different way of being, I guess. But Tim, he worked all the time, and he was rarely there. He worked in the evenings, so he was never there in the evening after I'd get home from work. But I had a nice room. I had everything I needed. I had my own bathroom, and it was just a safe space to start again and to start over. So I started this new job, and I had such dread. Oh, God, I just dreaded it so bad. I had to work inside, and I had to learn mail sorting and started learning the machinery. But it was just my mind couldn't wrap around the fact that I was going to have to be inside doing some mundane type work. And I was going to have to learn everything before I could become a driver. Also, they had a guide driver already, so they were expanding, and I would be taking on a new route. But I felt like a caged animal. I had to be there at 7 a.m., which is not that early, but when you've been living the night crawler lifestyle, it is early, and I'd been a night person for so long, but I was willing to make the adjustment because I didn't want to be a loser. I really, really wanted things to change. Notice I said things, quotations. I was still under the mindset that life was happening to me. I just felt jinxed. Jinx was actually my nickname that my mother called me. I didn't even know what it meant when I was little, and one day I remember looking it up in the dictionary, and it meant bad luck. And that was confusing because when she called me that, it was usually like a term of endearment, like if she winked at me. And still to this day, there's something about a wink that just sends an inner, profound, deep-rooted reaction through me. It's like a instinctive, guttural wave of emotion that just washes through my soul. I can feel it in my skin, my flesh, and my bones, all the way to my core. When my Nanny Kelly would wink at me, it was like pure love, just pure unconditional love. And when my next door neighbor Brad would wink at me, it was kind of like total acceptance. And when my mother would wink at me, it was like total approval at that moment. And of course, when a girl or a woman would wink at me across the gymnasium or a classroom or a bar, it was like a secret, like we had something that nobody else had. It was sacred. But my routine was pretty humdrum, and I had to ride my motorcycle to work, and that was really hard because in bad weather, it was just very difficult. But I had to suck it up, and I had this rain suit, and I had this big insulated jumpsuit, made me look like the Michelin Man, that you kind of zip up over your clothes. I was coming home one evening, and it was dusk, I guess, and this car just came up beside me and just completely, the car drug its body up my handle. So basically, this guy just kind of hit me, and I lost control, and he was pulling into a gas station and knocked me into a median. So there I was laying on the ground, and this guy just pulls up to the gas pump. He didn't even see me. And I picked my motorcycle up, and I walked up, and I had that big suit on, and I had a big face shield that was kind of smoke. You couldn't see my face. And I started saying, "You just hit me." He was like, "What?" And I said, "You just hit me. You just ran into me." And I pointed at my motorcycle. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I go, "Well, look at your car." And there was this big black, like long line down the side of his light yellow car. So I just got on my motorcycle and took off, I figured it's his fault. But it was hard riding that motorcycle in weather, but I just had to do it because that was what I had sort of created. But I learned how to sort mail by hand. And then they started teaching me how to use some of these machines, and they were like labeling machines. I don't really remember what all they did, but I'd rather do that. I preferred to do the machinery over sitting with all those women. They were kind of hen cackling over there over the mail. When the bosses would go away, they'd kind of start talking, and it just kind of got on my nerves. But I kept my distance from everyone, and I stayed totally detached. And I think I was traumatized still from the ice cream experience, and I just didn't want anybody to know anything about me. Some of the people would invite me out after work to happy hours and such, but I would just go home to Regina's house, and she was a good cook and made unique things, that I'd never had, Middle Eastern foods and kind of Mediterranean style. So I started trying to run a little bit and work out some, and Tim had a weight set in the garage, and I was really trying to get it together. I had this thought, like if you were physically in shape and attractive, then things would get better for you. I mean, I really believed that. I had no concept of improving mental musculature. I did start to read some at night before bed, and I didn't have a TV in my room, and Regina wasn't big on TV, so she and I would kind of do puzzles and talk, kind of like the old Tampa days. I guess on some level, we were forming somewhat of an intimate relationship. She believed in me for some reason. And I think she saw potential in me, but the problem with potential is that you're always walking behind somebody. It's always like you're seeking out their future, or you're chasing their future instead of being in that present moment. And I felt pressure to do better and to be better. But it's like Regina knew something about me that I didn't. But Tim would get home late, usually after I would go to bed, so I rarely saw him. But when I did, he was really nice to me, and he seemed to adore Regina. And I started getting pretty bored and antsy. And Regina had really laid down the law when I moved in about no drugs. And I didn't have a problem with that. She said, I don't mind if you have drink a few beers, but absolutely no drugs. But what it did was it kind of set up a sneaky dynamic. And I thought, oh God, here we go again, feeling. But I finally became a driver with the mailing company. And basically I was like a mail courier. But I was going to prove that I would be the best at this, this overachiever mentality. But the other guy, driver, he was a smug little bitch. His name was Todd, but he was about 5'9". He played on some football league, some intramural football thing he talked about. He had kind of sandy red hair and kind of sandy red freckly skin with a tan, sort of. But he walked like kind of one-sided with his neck sort of sideways. And he was about my age, but he would barely acknowledge my existence. And I could probably have kicked his ass, I know that. But I started learning my route and learning all the companies. And there were some big companies in there, big office parks and things like that. And I had been in some of these selling ice cream, and that was what was weird about it. Because I thought, well, I hope they don't know that I'm that person, but not that it would matter. But I would have to run mail bins into these companies' mail rooms or leave with a certain individual. And sometimes I'd have to use a hand truck and take like a big stack of boxes, into the loading docks or wherever they had to be. Usually it was kind of a side note. And we had these little kind of two-way radios in the van. So home base could call you and kind of dispatch another place to pick up or something like that. If it was, usually you had your regular day of mail pickup. You picked up the mail at the post office that morning, and you had all these bins of mail in the van. And then you take all of those and boom, 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 deliver to all the companies. And then they would start dispatching, and this would be like different pickups and drop-offs and things of that nature. So I started using some of my ice cream tricks when time became an issue, and I knew that I was in a crunch. I'd just park out front instead of going around back to the loading docks, and I'd just act like my van was broken down. I'd raise the hood and act like I was having van trouble, and then go ahead and unload the stuff and go in the front. And it was just a lot quicker. But I never really got approached. Most people in downtown Atlanta aren't going to say anything because they don't want to help you. But I remember going into that tall Georgia Pacific building right on Peachtree Street, and I jumped the curb right up onto the pavers in front of the building because there's nowhere to park at all off Peachtree. But I lifted the hood and I'd get the hand truck, and I had to take a bunch of stuff, and I just went into the front door of Georgia Pacific and got on the regular elevator instead of the freight elevator. But it was tricky, but it was a lot faster, and nobody ever questioned me. And if they did, I could just play dumb blonde female, and that was the whole way to deal with that. And that way you could just sort of like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know. And it kind of like the old West Peachtree Street 4th of July party, 4th of July parade on that day when I sold all the ice cream. That was hilarious, but I just had to just wing it. And I think a lot of times, that's what we all do anyways, just winging it. But I started making friends with people on kind of a superficial level at some of these companies. And I was always friendly and complimentary, and I knew how to work it to my advantage. And the bosses were very happy with my performance, which was good because that's really that whole approval seeking. And the main boss, his name was Wayne, and he kind of looked like Al Pacino with a beard and kind of coked out eyes. I think he was having an affair with Debbie, the girl that I met at the gas station that got me the job. And so the more I was there, the more I realized that they were having this affair. He was married and they were doing cocaine. And he's the owner of the place, so here we go. But then Mike was my immediate boss. He was the supervisor over the drivers. There were two of us, but he reminded me of my cousin that gave me the Beatles record. So what was weird is like when I would associate a look with somebody, it was like it would make me like them or not. It was sort of weird how my mind would do that. I don't really know where that came from, but it was sort of like an association. But being downtown Atlanta was really starting to create a sense of longing. Like I was missing out on something. And I began to feel that pull of ungodliness, I guess you could call it, or wickedness, or just sin. But it was like this fluttering sensation, kind of like butterflies in my stomach, but with like nervous anticipation. And I started stopping at the liquor store on the way home and buying a bottle of Absolute vodka, only because I liked the bottle. You know, it was like this clear bottle with blue lettering, and I don't know why that bottle attracted me, but marketing. But I'd put it in my green JanSport backpack and ride my motorcycle home. And so I started going into my room earlier and earlier than usual. And I think Regina started kind of noticing, and I'd try to hide from Regina and Tim. He was home usually on Wednesday nights, and he would usually cook because he was a really good cook. And so we would have dinner, but I would sort of just disappear and, you know, go to my room so I could drink. And they didn't know that I had that bottle in my room. And I would attempt to read and just sort of be in there. And that way I could get my fix. But this storm was starting to brew inside of me. And it was sort of scaring me. But then again, I was like, oh, I don't care. You know, there's such a denial in thinking that you can control alcohol or the actions that come from it. But in a way, I had sort of set Tim and Regina up as my disapproving parents. So now I'm right back where I was. I'm in my bedroom, hiding, drinking, sneaking. And then one day after work, it was like that feeling had been with me all day. I was driving around on my route. I was delivering my stuff, but I would see the old stomping grounds, and I was seeing, you know, Cheshire Bridge Road and all these places that I had been on my motorcycle, and the nightlife and all of that. And I had really been trying so hard to get myself in shape and to start over. But this discontent and this anticipation just clutched at my throat. So after work one day, I rode my motorcycle out to Lawrenceville. And I rode down a few streets, and I was just sort of looking, and I looked over this lake, and it was like this little park. And then I saw an ice cream truck, and there was Lisa.
Hammered is recorded and produced in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. It's narrated by Jill Haynie, produced by Maggie Briggs and Jill Haynie, and with sound design, editing, and music by Alexander Rodriguez. Our beautiful artwork was created by Lauren Caddick, and we'd like to send a special thanks out there to Minnie and Robin. You can check out our website, podcasthammered.com, and follow us on social media for updates.